So for this one, we were faced with, I'll just go through. We're faced with a challenge in this place. It's in Shakespeare Grove in Hawthorn, a lot of grand Victorian homes there, and there was a nondescript 1980s number. And we were faced with a challenge where council, they weren't going to accept a overtly contemporary home. So we had to sort of create something that was going to work in this heritage streetscape. So our approach was to provide an alternative to their council for mock architecture and instead reinterpret the sentiment of an older period home. So creating our own contemporary heritage and again, doing something that's unapologetically new. Rather than look at local references, we looked further abroad at some of our contemporaries that we enjoy, some of the modernist architects we admire and share a pared-back aesthetic, and look at the references that we thought might be more appropriate to our time now, and that would still sit comfortably in this heritage context of the area. We'd like to think our buildings, they're typified by having their own sort of singular holistic approach and a simplified identity and expression of how that exterior of the building works with the internal spaces.
So typically you would approach renovation works of a period home where you maintain the core fabric of the building and then add to the rear with a new extension. This is how we kind of treated this project, utilising kind of that approach to create two distinctive parts to this home. And so you have the front that's more private and intimate, and then you step down and open out to the back where you've got the living space that opens out onto the outdoor living in the rear. And it's a conversation between these two parts that gives the building its own identity. So entering in, you enter between the two forms, the two distinctive forms, and the ground floor you can see there that houses all the living spaces, whereas upstairs you have all the bedrooms, and then because of the floor of the site, you then get you approach a car parking through the basement, through the laneway to the basement, that then have the secondary functions where it has a gym, the cellar and laundry down the basement area.
At the front, it's more associated, with the parents' part of the home. This is the more formal part of the building. Its focus is inward, it's personal. The ground floor, it houses a formal living room and a study. The first floor, their master bedroom suite. The section, it's typified by the punched windows, the taller ceilings. There's more ornate detail, controlled aspect, muted quality of light. These are all references to the sensation and the charm you might feel in an older period home. Highly decorative timber inlaid ceilings, timber strap walls. They're celebrating a level of detail that you might see in an older home, like a 1930s home, for example. And where there's practicalities like air conditioning, we're owning it, we're celebrating it, so we're detailing accordingly there. In wanting to create more sort of internally focused rooms, cocooning effect, we've lined them all in like a dark chocolate felt walling there as well.
So going from that front part, which is much more closed, you then go to the rear where it's the family living area that's much more open, it's more spacious, relaxed, but these spaces are still defined by the raw intensity of the materials that's used through the in situ concrete, through the rendered walls and ceilings, to give it the same level of intensity to the front. The kitchen, the rear section is quite minimalist in its feel, and it's punctured centrally with the kitchen, with the brass bench that you can see. That's kind of like a glowing heart of this house. And this brass bench top will patina, it will mark an age with its use, which then records the family history as part of it, and it just gives it some age and permanence to this build. The very textural dowelled faces that you see there on the joinery, it kind of adds something to this very pared back rear space that then relates it back to the front that's got much more intricate detailing to the front, so it kind of balances it out. Yeah. The feel of this permanence is then further enhanced by the use of the in situ concrete throughout this rear area. So you see the fireplace, it's grounded there, the bench top that's built in, the surrounding of the concrete to the joinery to the kitchen that then separates the kitchen to the living room space. So it just separates it out from the main living. And with the materials that's been used, we kind of felt like having any painted plaster wall and ceiling would be a little bit weak to be the backdrop of these materials. So we ended up using very fine sand with a putty colour render to the ceiling and the walls, so that we're celebrating the rawness and the imperfection of these materials. That gives it a much more relaxed feel throughout the home. And the same sort of intensity is kind of taken through into the bathrooms, so that we use these glazed Japanese wall tiles throughout. The secondary bathrooms have these Japanese battens that are all laid in a rhythmic pattern, and different rooms will just have different colours, whereas the main master bathroom ensuite have the much more textured Japanese tile, but still in the same sort of format. The cabinetries are all tiled as well, so you have this very pared back material selection. So it's minimalist in its material palette, but it's very highly decorative in its execution.
So maintaining that minimal palette outside, the in situ concrete, detailed like timber for the pergolas, and creating spaces externally to use there. So we're extending that through to custom built-in furniture. So the brickwork there, building items out of that, and furnishing the rooms, even things like the concrete table. Japanese tiles make their appearance again outside. So we're building stuff out of the core building materials for furniture on this job.
And continuing on building furniture, there's a series of custom furnitures and fittings throughout this job. So you see there's a custom built bar unit that's sitting in the dining room as a standalone furniture that's quite playful in its nature. And you have a series of tables that's dotted throughout the house. That's some are much more structured, like the dining table.
No time. Oh, I didn't hear the little
Oops, sorry.
2-minute thing. Okay, done. Cool. Thank you. Yep.